There is a question I get asked more than any other, which is, what does it actually feel like? The shift, the thing that happened to me and happens to everyone who ends up where I am. The honest answer is that it does not feel like one thing. It feels like 5 things, in order. Over the course of about 3 days, 5 levels, each one with a name, a timeline, and a body of research that explains exactly what your brain is doing and why it feels the way it does. I'm going to walk you through all of them. Not because I think you are going to end up like me, I think most of you will not, but the difference between the people who made it through the first 72 hours and the people who did not was not strength or preparation or luck. It was knowing which level they were in, because each one requires a completely different response, and if you treat level 3 like level 1, you will make the problem significantly worse. I treated level 3 like level 1. I know exactly what that cost. Let's start at the beginning. The first thing that happens when a genuine crisis begins is that you feel extraordinary. That is not a metaphor. Your body releases a surge of adrenaline and a hormone called norepinephrine that together do something remarkable. They suppress pain, sharpen your focus, speed up your reaction time, and flood you with a feeling of clarity and capability. Your heart rate climbs, your muscles get more blood. You feel faster, sharper, and more decisive than you have ever felt in your life. This is your body doing exactly what it evolved to do. In the right situation, a short, physical, immediate threat, it is a genuine advantage. The problem is that collapse is not a short, physical, immediate threat. It is a sustained, complex, ongoing situation. And the surge is not designed for sustained, complex, ongoing situations. What the surge actually does under those conditions is create a feeling of competence that outruns your actual competence. You feel sharper than you are. You feel more in control than you are. You make decisions quickly and confidently. And confidence at this stage is not a reliable signal of accuracy. Research from combat psychology documents this consistently. Dave Grossman's work on the physiological response to mortal threat describes what happens when heart rate climbs above 145 beats per minute. Complex motor skills start to degrade. Fine detail processing narrows. The brain begins making fast, pattern-matching decisions rather than careful analytical ones. You are not thinking more clearly, you are thinking more quickly, which is a different thing. And in this specific window, a dangerous thing. In my first 4 hours, I made 6 decisions. I was confident about all of them. I have since had time to review them carefully. 4 were reasonable. 2 were wrong in ways that compounded across the next 3 days. The rule for level 1, do not trust your confidence. Act on what you prepared in advance, not on what feels right in the moment. The feeling is real, the information behind it is not. The surge does not simply stop, it tapers. And as it tapers, something else takes over. Your brain, which has been running at maximum capacity for several hours, starts making choices about what to pay attention to. Specifically, it narrows. There is a well-documented phenomenon in psychology called attentional narrowing, sometimes called tunnel vision, though that phrase understates how complete it can become. The basic principle is this: under sustained stress, the brain reduces the range of information it actively processes. It is a resource management decision. The brain is expensive to run, it is running hot, and it starts shedding anything that does not feel immediately relevant to the primary threat. The researcher Hugh Easterbrook documented this in what became known as the cue utilization hypothesis. As emotional arousal increases, the range of environmental cues a person uses to make decisions decreases. At low stress, you take in a wide range of information. At high stress, that range collapses down to the thing directly in front of you. At hour 7, I was watching a door. I was watching it very carefully. I was watching for movement, for sound, for any sign of what might come through it. I was completely focused. I was doing exactly what felt right. There was a window 3 feet to my left that I had not looked at in 2 hours. Tunnel vision is not a failure of attention. It is attention working exactly as designed, optimized for a specific kind of threat, in an environment with multiple kinds of threats. Your brain picks the one that feels most immediate and points everything at it. The other threats do not disappear, you just stop seeing them. The rule for level 2, force a scan. Set a physical routine. Every 20 minutes, stop, turn your full body in a slow circle and look at everything that is not the thing you have been watching. It will feel unnecessary. Do it anyway. The thing that gets you in level 2 is almost never the thing you are looking at. This is the level nobody warns you about, not because it is secret, because from the outside, it looks like the person is fine. Around the 12-hour mark, the hormones that powered the first 2 levels begin to come down. Cortisol, which has been keeping your body in a state of readiness, starts to drop. Your blood sugar, which has been burning through reserves, falls. Your muscles, which have been primed for action, start to register what they have been doing. And your brain, which has been making decisions at an accelerated rate for 12 or more hours, runs into what researchers call decision fatigue. Decision fatigue is not tiredness in the normal sense. It is a specific depletion of the cognitive resources required to weigh options and commit to a choice. Roy Baumeister's research on this, which has since been replicated across dozens of studies, shows that the quality of decisions degrades measurably after a sustained period of decision-making. The brain does not stop making decisions. It starts making them faster and with less information, defaulting to whatever requires the least mental effort. At hour 16, I sat down with a map and tried to decide where to go next. It was not a complicated decision. I had the information I needed. I had made harder choices earlier that day without much trouble. I sat there for 45 minutes. I could not pick a direction. Not because the choice was genuinely unclear, because my brain had spent its decision-making fuel and was now presenting me with two options that felt exactly equivalent, which was not a true reflection of the situation. It was a reflection of how depleted the system doing the evaluation had become. The rule for Level 3: make no new strategic decisions in this window if you can avoid it. If you prepared a plan before the crisis, follow it. If you must make a decision, use the simplest possible framework. Which option puts me in a better position in 2 hours? Not 2 days, 2 hours. The depleted brain can handle a short time horizon. It struggles badly with long ones. Level 4 is the most dangerous level. Not because it is the most painful, it is not. Not because it is the most dramatic, it is not. Because it feels like recovery. Around the 24-hour mark, something shifts. The acute stress response has passed. The crash has bottomed out. Your body has made some adjustments, and you start to feel, gradually, more stable. Your thinking clears a little. You feel more like yourself. You start to make plans. What is actually happening is that your brain is doing something it does after every significant disruption. It is filing the new situation as normal. Psychologists call this normalization. The brain is a prediction machine, and it updates its model of what is normal based on recent experience. After 24 hours of crisis, recent experience is the crisis. The brain starts treating it as baseline. This sounds like adaptation, and in some ways it is. The problem is what gets lost in the process. When the brain normalizes a crisis, it reduces the urgency signals it was generating in the first 24 hours. Those signals were exhausting and unsustainable, and the brain is correct to reduce them. But it reduces them whether or not the danger has actually decreased. The threat does not have to have changed. Your perception of it changes anyway, because your brain decided you needed to function, and functioning requires treating something as stable even when it isn't. John Leach's research on behavioral inactivity in survival situations documents a specific pattern he calls the do-something failure. Survivors who, after a period of acute action, settle into a state of reduced activity and begin to act as if they have more time than they do, not because they believe the danger has passed, because the internal alarm system has been turned down, and without the alarm, urgency does not generate on its own. At hour 30, I was making a 3-day plan. It was a detailed plan. It was a calm plan. I wrote it down. The situation I was planning for had not improved. My brain had simply stopped telling me that it hadn't. The rule for Level 4: do not trust the calm. Check the actual situation, not your internal read of it. Ask a specific, concrete question. What has materially changed since hour 1? And answer it with evidence rather than with how you feel. The calm is real. What caused it is not what you think. Everything I have described so far is survivable. The surge, the tunnel, the crash, the drift, these are stages you move through. They are not permanent. People have come out the other side of all of them intact and gone on to function well. Level 5 is different. Somewhere between 48 and 72 hours, if the conditions are right, And by right, I mean sustained, unrelieved, without social support, without a genuine path forward, something happens that is not just psychological. It is closer to a reorganization. The researcher Bessel van der Kolk, who spent decades studying what extreme stress does to the self, describes it this way. At a certain point, the brain stops trying to get back to who it was and starts building around who it is now. The pre-crisis identity, the one with a home, a routine, a future, a sense of what normal is supposed to look like, becomes less accessible. Not gone, just no longer the operating system. At hour 60, I noticed something. I had stopped thinking about what I was going to do when things got back to normal. Not because I had decided things wouldn't get back to normal. I hadn't decided anything. The thought had simply stopped occurring to me. The future I had been measuring everything against, the one where this ends and I go back, had quietly stopped being the reference point. Something else had taken its place. That was the turn. I know exactly when it happened. I did not know it was happening at the time. The reason I am telling you this is not to describe my experience. It is to tell you that the turn has a specific window, and inside that window, it can be interrupted. The research on this comes from trauma psychology and from studies of people who survived extended crisis situations and came out psychologically intact. What those people almost always had in the 48 to 72-hour window was one of three things: a person who kept them connected to who they were before, a concrete task that required them to act as if there was a future worth acting for, or both. That is it. That is what stands between level 4 and level 5. Not strength, not willpower, not preparation in the gear and supplies sense. A person or a task that keeps the pre-crisis self available long enough for the brain to find its way back to it. I did not have either. I know what that cost. 5 levels: the surge, the tunnel, the crash, the drift, and the turn. Each one documented, each one predictable, and each one with a specific rule that changes the outcome if you apply it in time. You now know something that most people do not: what is coming, in what order, and roughly when. That is not nothing. That is the entire difference between being inside a process you don't understand and being inside a process you can recognize and respond to. The first 72 hours are not the whole story, but they are where the story gets set. The decisions made in that window compound. The levels you navigate well give you more to work with in the ones that follow. The ones you don't cost you in ways that are very hard to recover. Know what kills you before it does.